The missing puzzle piece of Egypt's mysteries. Once you accept that the obelisk and stones in the Aswan quarry were an elaborate ruse to throw off future civilizations from discovering their ancient building methods, it's clear that no ropes, no tens of thousands of slaves, no ramps, and no aliens were used to build the pyramids. Simply a geopolymer composite poured into molds, one atop another, to create a chemically hardened stone indistinguishable from the local granite was formed. Now, if I was really smart and I wanted to keep my technology secret from competing civilizations, I might build a couple blocks at the source as to make it look like they were lifted, cut, and transported across the desert before being used. And that trick has worked for thousands of years. The answer is simple. We were duped. Now, I urge you guys to watch UnchartedX channel of his tours in Egypt, and you'll see the geopolymers failing on some of the columns and some of the statues, and they fail like concrete might fail if it was mixed poorly. The insides of these columns are rotting away while the outsides are still hard. Granite doesn't fail from the inside out, ever. Also, they go into it, they say this is failing hundreds of thousands of years before granite would ever fail. So you've got that, you've got monstrous statues that would weigh, I guess, 1,000 tons, which is beyond unachievable. So watch some of his videos, watch some tours of Egypt, and keep in mind this theory that the quarries have tricked us on purpose. I have recorded a couple clips from YouTuber UnchartedX and his trips to Egypt, because I find his tours very interesting, and he has great camera angles of the exact same things I'm talking about.
Taking a deep dive into one of the more notorious mysteries of the ancient world, the granite quarry of Aswan, located in Upper Egypt. Today, this site is most well known for what can still be found here, still attached to the bedrock in its trench, the mighty unfinished obelisk. Carved from a single solid piece of granite, if it were fully detached from the rocky outcrop, it is estimated to have weighed over 1,100 tons. And given both its mass and location in an angled trench in the middle of a granite mountain, it represents a true logistical nightmare for the primitive capabilities of the ancient Egyptians, at least as we know them today. Despite this artifact being the main attraction of the quarry, there is in fact much more than a gigantic unfinished obelisk to be observed here. Quarries like this one are incredibly precious resources, in some ways even more important to deciphering the past than are finished monuments or artifacts. As with the signatures left in the stone, they can tell us much about the capabilities and processes used by the ancient peoples who worked here. The signatures found in the stone here at Aswan are at the root of a long-standing and ongoing mystery and debate. Just how were these so-called scoop marks formed into the hard granite? And just what do they mean for the technological capabilities of the ancient civilization that made them? Authoritative claims from the academic mainstream would have you believe that these scoop marks, which are found both on and around the obelisk as well as in many other areas, are the result of nothing more than the primitive bashing or scraping into the granite with dolerite pounding stones. And any visitor to this site today, before being let outside to look for themselves, is first forced to endure indoctrination in a stuffy room to this very end. This is something unique to the quarry, as no other location in Egypt, at least in my experience, requires this sort of thing. It almost makes sense in a weird sort of way, as without it, the whole dolerite pounding stone thing would be so obviously ridiculous that you really need something official and authoritative like this in order to condition the average tourist's mind towards that explanation. Of course, anyone familiar with the long debate around this topic, or in particular any engineers, stoneworkers, or construction experts who understand what it is they're looking at, almost uniformly reject this official premise for how the work was done.
And stay solid on the outside. So this extended, and this is what caused these cracks. But this is solid. This is the part that crumbles. It cracked because of the extent of minerals that happened in the core, which shows as well that this transformation happened after the stone was shaped.
Some unknown process has transformed the hard stone in this part of the temple, and this happened after the blocks were cut. It's literally crumbling apart. I really don't have an explanation for it, but I can draw a comparison to some other examples of crumbling stone. End was on display. Now it's been assembled into most of an arm and shoulder, and remarkably, given that the arm is straight, this was very likely to have been a standing statue rather than one of a figure seated. The quarry for the quartzite is not specifically known, but it certainly wasn't Aswan. And again, we're faced with the mother of all logistical issues when it comes to quarrying and transporting the giant block used for this statue, which likely would have easily exceeded 1,000 tons. A close examination of the features of the hand also reveals some interesting aspects. Note the fine work and carving of the thumbnail, obviously an original feature, and then compare it to the relatively crude inscription of the cartouche that's been made into the end of the scroll that the hand is holding. Here we can see an unfinished column, still rough on the outside, showing just how the final product was achieved. Sandstone blocks are piled up and then shaped and shaved down to give them their distinctive form. As large as they are, the effort and technology required to make one of these is a world apart from that required to make a single piece monolithic granite column. That's not to mention that the granite had to be shipped into the site from over 100 miles away, while the source for the sandstone was relatively local. Several of these monolithic granite columns can still be found in a central structure at Luxor.
And the granite pillars, all granite pillars, and then these are sandstone, stacked sandstone rounds. So order and then... Right, so these are trying to replicate probably these older pillars here. And the whole thing's granite here in the center too.
We're going to pause it right here, take a look at the detail. It's clear that the more ancient stuff is done and executed with a lot more precision than the newer stuff. You've got the newer stuff by Ramses II, just done a lot sloppier than back with Menkaure 1,000 years prior. And it's possible that the ancients could have taken their secrets to the grave, quite literally. You can tell with the early stuff, these were passion projects with Khufu and Imhotep, and they really took pride in what they were building. And as generations passed, it became more of an upkeep and tradition more than their own creation. And the work got very sloppy, almost like the original building of a house might be excellent, and as random people come to fix it and handymen do patches over patches, it just gets worse and worse.
Glass or water glass. They mixed it with potassium silicate obtained by the same process. They poured the liquid into a lens-shaped mold. 2 to 3 days later, they unmolded the transparent lens. A lens that focuses light at one point, a magnifying glass. The larger the lens, the higher the temperature. Everyone can make their own solar lens with the recipe. Have fun. With a 5-meter diameter lens, the temperature reaches 1,800 degrees to 2,000 degrees Celsius. The Egyptians have just discovered solar energy. Everything is melted, nothing can resist. Granite literally melts at once, like lava. The Egyptians poured this lava into clay molds. And here is the famous statue of the 3rd dynasty, Huni, the grandfather of Khufu, in Aswan granite. Vases harder than steel, like these in trachyandesite, dating from at least 3500 BC. Here is how the granite was extracted, and what happened with the unfinished obelisk in Aswan. The workers in the Aswan quarry were responsible for extracting the granite in cobblestone-sized pieces. These are small pieces of 30 to 40 centimeters, which were extracted from the molten granite with stone shovels. Once cooled, these pieces were transported by boat to Giza, over 900 kilometers away. When they reached Giza, they were melted again and then poured into clay molds. To estimate the volume of granite to take away, the workers cut out this part of the quarry in the form of an obelisk, which was completely melted 1 week later and transported in cobblestone-sized pieces. Here, a ball of dolerite fell in the granite in lava form, and it got stuck there for millennia. Nature does not do that. The melting of the granite was done from May to August. The traces of all the granite extractions are tilted. This corresponds to the best trajectory of the sun. During these months, its intensity is the strongest. The geologist of a tourist group was surprised by the absence of faults, fractures, in natural granite. This is natural, and it is normal, and there is nothing. There are no faults. How is it possible? This is normal, because the molten granite, once cooled, is like new, out of the ground. The workers melted the granite using the lens. Then they began to cut notches and holes in the granite while playing with the solar ray of the lens. Suddenly, the site was abandoned. This is how the Egyptians melted all kinds of stone: quartz, granite, schist, basalt, diorite, gneiss, greywacke. No luck, they did not come upon ferrous earth. Otherwise, they would have discovered steel. Solar energy was fully deployed. Queen Hatshepsut in Karnak writes that her obelisk was completed in 7 months. This is entirely possible with the lens. The colossi of Memnon, weighing 1,800 tons each, were made with a mixture of quartz and molten granite. The Egyptians mined copper for thousands of years in the Sinai mines. Copper is a very soft material used to make pans that were used to make the silk. Why is there no evidence? Throughout its history, humanity has waged wars for energy. A forest, a field, a coast, a lake, its potential food, its energy. Throughout its existence, humanity has waged wars for energy. So, you have to imagine that such a discovery had to remain secret. It was passed on discreetly from generation to generation. Today, solar is the most accessible and cheapest energy. It is free. The evidence that the granite was cast with solar lenses could possibly be found in the archives of the Vatican, Paris, London, and Cairo.
Melting? Boys, I think we're doing it!
Are we doing it? I can see my corner is definitely liquidy.
Oh, boys! Melting! It's melting! Melting! It's flat out melting! Yeah! We have melted gold! We flippin' did it! We did it! Yeah! Oh, glorious!
Were we just going with the wrong side?
All right, rewatch the history and know that geologists aren't easily going to accept that they may have been wrong. It's stuck in their head in one way, and it's up to us to prove that that's not the case. Now, we are going to be able to prove that with density tests of these objects, but just look at them failing from the inside and starting to crumble, and you can see the proof for yourself. It's pretty clear. So check it out. That is today's follow-up episode to the comments I keep getting about my geopolymer theory. They go, well, we have the quarries. And I said, the quarries are the deception. Until next time, peace.